All right, another podcast from the Michigan Institute of Athletics in Brighton, Michigan. It's going to be an awesome podcast today. I've been excited for this one. Right before we get into it, I want to shout out VetLife. VetLife is a 501c3 nonprofit company. It's a company of veterans for veterans. Every veteran faces difficulties when they transition from active duty back to civilian life, and VetLife is there to ease that transition. If you want to reach out to VetLife, you can do so through Instagram or Facebook, or check out their website at vetlifetoday.org. So without further ado, I want to introduce Jason Bedford. You remember this academy. You trained jiu-jitsu here, but I've never really got to hear your story. You're running for school board. I'm extremely excited to, break down your origin story and the platform that you're running on. I'm going to start this episode like I start all of my episodes, though. I'm going to take you all the way back to the beginning. Where were you born and raised? What were you like as a young man? Like, what were the things that kind of built your identity or that your world revolved around? What was the family life like? And then we'll start to build your story today.
Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be a guest here. I've watched your podcast, and you've got some amazing guests on here, and I'm honored to be one of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, I'm honored to have you. As soon as I saw you running for school board, I was like, man, I have to get him on the show because I know Jason Bedford, and I know the man that I believe you to be and the integrity level that I've always witnessed from you, but I want the community to see that. So let's start with your story from the beginning. Where were you born and raised?
Let's do it. So I was born in Battle Creek, Michigan, 1977. My father, who just recently passed away, was in construction, and that's one of the themes of my life. You'll see play out through our conversation. I grew up in a construction family with a construction dad, uncles, grandfathers, great-grandfathers, and being in construction, our family moved a fair bit, all within Michigan, but let's see, I want to say I started kindergarten in Grand Ledge, and then shortly thereafter, my family relocated to Dimondale, Michigan, which nobody's ever heard of except maybe the folks that attend the State Police Academy. That's right there, just kind of southwest of Lansing. Relocated there when I was in first grade, and kind of our early family life. I had a sister who's 4 years younger than me. And I had a mother that pushed academics, and a father who worked long, grueling hours in construction, and kind of the free time we had as a family were spent either playing or watching sports, or watching comedy. That was one kind of unifying thing when Dad got home late on a Friday night. We would all sit down and try to watch something that made everybody laugh.
So it sounds like you come from like a really traditional family structure, and it sounds like a great life. I mean, that's a good lineage to come from. Father from the skilled trades. Mom's always going to push academics. She wants you to go, further than anyone in the family's history. That's usually the mother's vision. What are the things you think you pulled from witnessing like a construction worker as your father and a lot of the work ethic and character? What did you learn from being around construction workers growing up?
So, number one, I learned probably every inappropriate, hilarious joke that is out there. I mean, tradespeople have wonderful senses of humor. I love it to this day. It's part
that definitely is part of the culture.
It's part of the culture that I love. But one thing that I took away from that was pride of workmanship. In construction, people know what you do by the condition of your work, right? And let your work speak for you, not only your skill, but your character. Don't leave something undone. Do what you say you're going to do. Being on time means being 10 minutes early. And, my father being a foreman for a long time, leading construction crews, it's not enough to be there 10 minutes early as a leader. Be there an hour early and make sure your guys have everything they need to do their job safely. So those are kind of the things that, that my father pressed on me is work hard. Don't ever take for granted that you've done everything you need to do. There's always something more you can do to create a better product, better work environment, better better something. There's always something to be done.
Yeah, that idea of trying to master your craft is so important because if you learn to do it in one aspect, it's going to spill over into so many aspects of your life. When you learn how to be able to reflect at the level you're at, aim upward, pursue that level, right? Then all of a sudden you start to look at your relationships. You start to look at other aspects. You look at yourself as a father. You look at yourself as a community member, and you start to be like, how can I raise in this field?
110%. One of the things that I try to embrace, one of the principles I try to embrace is never get comfortable, right? Not only is there something more you can do to perfect a relationship, a job, whatever, never stop learning. And that's one of the reasons I took up ultra running in my mid 30s. I'm not built like your traditional ultra runner. A shout out to Garrett Koger, nor is he, but we enjoy doing it. One of the reasons I decided to walk in here and start training jiu-jitsu and boxing in my mid 40s, never get comfortable, because at the point where you start failing, that's where you grow. And that's, that you never want to stop that process. You never want to stagnate.
100%. That growth mindset is something that I preach to everyone I work with, whether it's my fighters or even like kids that are coming from the court system that are struggling. It's like you got to learn how to adopt a growth mindset. And if you do that, you're going to become so much better and stronger than what you even thought possible, which then allows you to aim upward even higher because you're now standing on a plateau that you didn't even know you could reach previously. And it allows you to look up and say, well, if I went from there to here, how great can I become? Right?
Correct.
So one of the things that really has always struck me about you is you seem like a very patriotic man, a man that is very thankful for the country. You have a lot of gratitude for your life and the things that this country offers. Where does that come from? Like, where was that instilled in you as a child or as a young man? Or like, where does that gratitude stem from?
So, I did kind of come from that traditional working class background. Mom didn't work, dad did. What I was taught is if you want something, you can get it, but you better bust your butt to do so. And that means working hard. It also means working smart. And, I've been blessed truly in this life with the family I have, with a wonderful career. And, all of that is possible because of really where we live. This is truly the land of freedom and land of opportunity. And I've spent some time in other places, and I doubt that I would have that same opportunity there, and I really, truly want everyone to have that opportunity.
So when you were getting done with high school, what did you think life had in store for you? What did you think that you were going to be? Did you already know you were kind of following the construction path, or?
So growing up in a construction family, there were, kind of two trains of thought. You either jump in it or go find something else. And, I thought, I'll try something different. There's been enough Bedfords in contracting. Maybe there's another Bedford path out there. So I decided that I was going to be a chemical engineer until I took some chemistry and found out that wasn't necessarily a good path for me to follow. But what that led me to was an internship with the Michigan Department of Transportation. And I worked in what they called the coatings lab as a chemical intern. Part of my job was watching paint dry.
Literally.
Well, more properly observing paint dry. And
taking notes on paint drying.
And measuring paint film thicknesses and mils, and then recording everything as part of the experimental application of coatings in different thicknesses to different substrates. That wasn't a path I wanted to follow. But it just so happened in the lab next door, there was a group called Structural Investigations. And they got to do really cool stuff, like, go up in bucket trucks and inspect, bridge beams and get up on cables and kind of do that more high-speed type engineering. And I was drawn to that. So I formed a relationship with those guys, and then I spent the next 2 summers working with those folks. And really, that just kind of solidified my desire to be in construction at that point. For me, it was about the people, right? I got to spend 8, 10, 12 hours a day with some very hardworking, intelligent people, and that really really created in me a drive to surround myself at that point with interesting, intelligent, hardworking people, and that is construction.
And it seems like you're on a path of like truth seeking or trying to understand reality or observing information and trying to figure out how to modify it. Like you have to be wired a certain way to be the type of man that is trying to problem solve complex things like this and be in that field. So you're probably very logically driven as a man. You're very focused on black and white. Like how do we pull conclusions from this data and information? Would you describe yourself in that way?
Very much so, but the world doesn't necessarily run on math. It takes people, and that's really the challenge, right? Is to not only get yourself to perform, but working with other people to help them perform and grow.
Sure. I'm starting to see, you're painting me a vision of like the problem solving man though, which is going to connect to where we are at your story right now. I'm starting to see the man that's like seeing problems or seeing issues or even looking at unforeseen things that could be coming, and you're trying to solve these problems. You're trying to, with a team of people, break down a set of information and come up with solutions, right? Like it requires a lot of critical thinking to do what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that in my professional life, how that takes shape today is I lead teams that plan very complex and large construction programs. Think automotive production facilities, higher ed art research and development labs, things of that nature, where it's not just a simple metal box, right? There's thought that needs to go into it, and it's usually a mix of finding the technical solution that's cost effective, that meets the customer's requirements, and doing that as quickly and efficiently as possible. So it's a mix of management and information seeking and analysis.
Yeah, that's the critical thinking and the problem solving. And it sounds like there's quite a bit of leadership in your story, right? So you probably learned from some great leaders, and you've had to learn how to be a leader yourself. What do you think it is that defines a great leader?
2 things. Listening. Listen more than you speak. Speaking is important as a leader, but I think it's far more important to listen. And that listening will help you engage more meaningfully, right? And for me, that's the number 2 of leadership. You can't just sit in a walled off office and just say, "Hey, I manage thee. Go forth and work," right? You need to engage with people, and not everybody's the same, right? Some people, you can engage with over emails and a few phone calls. Sometimes it's all face-to-face. And as a leader, it's on you to understand, the best way to engage.
100%. And I think you're spot on with that. I think there's a lot of adaptability to being a great leader. I think if you go in with predetermined notions of exactly what you have to do, you're already failing. Like you have to have some ability to evolve or look at each person as the individual and say, okay, what does this person need to bring out their best so that we all can succeed together, right?
Yeah, you don't create a masterpiece with one brushstroke, right? You need other tools in the toolkit, and you cannot manage this, a group of people the same way. Now, there's standards, right? And that's what standards are for, is that you're managing everybody to a certain level of production or product, but how you get there, right? That's highly individual.
So let's talk a little bit about the educational piece of your story. You're a graduate, you have an MBA. Let's go into your credentials as a student.
All right, so I did kind of take a little bit of a windy, twisty path through college, at least my undergrad. I started in chemie and then worked myself over to construction management. And again, just kind of found a group of people that I really enjoyed working with, the faculty and staff and other students at Michigan State University, which to this day still has one of the finest construction management programs nationwide. Proud to be a graduate. So I graduated in 2000 with a degree in construction management, and I went to work for a general contractor in Lansing, Granger Construction. It's affiliated with a family with all of the waste bins at the curbside. But again, a great group of people, and you talk about leaders that help shape me and my mindset. I had the pleasure of working for a couple of them in that company that stress that you put the needs of the team first, and you work to develop that team. And it's one of the reasons I stay involved in some of the industry activities that I do, at the MSU career fairs and things like that. Is I've been blessed, right? People could have simply said, "Hey, Jason, sink or swim." By and large, that's not how our industry works, and there's great leaders helping some of the younger folks hit their potential. I owe it to my industry to be that same kind of leader, not just to look out for myself, but to look out for people that want to achieve and want to do the same things that I've been fortunate enough to do.
Most of the best people in my life that are really successful, that have got their things together, they all end up taking that approach. When they're good human beings, they're like, man, a lot of people poured into me to get me to this point, so I'm going to pour into others. Because what if someone never would have taken a chance on me? What if someone wouldn't have helped me to develop to the man that I was supposed to be? I can do that. And I know that you do that because you give back to, the track and field programs of the local schools we're going to get into, and especially what you're campaigning for now. It's like you feel that sense of, I'm a part of my story, and why I have what I have is because of some great people that I encountered. How do I become that person for others so that they can achieve the same levels?
Absolutely, it's that sense of responsibility I think we all have to have. Nobody gets to where they are in life.
You're
alone.
part of a community, right?
Yeah,
like you got to remember that you're a part of a community. Let's talk a little about the family life. You've got two daughters. You got to. So there's Jason the father. There's Jason the husband. There's Jason the businessman. Let's talk a little bit about the family part of the story.
So I like to think that Jason the businessman and Jason the dad are a lot alike. Jason the dad eats way more ice cream than he probably should, but it's the family side. We just moved our oldest daughter into her first college dorm a few weeks ago. So that's been an incredible adjustment for us. Been thinking about it all summer, but when we drove away, it hits different, as they say, and just so incredibly proud of the student and athlete and human being that she is. I'm equally proud of my youngest daughter, who it's funny. You have kids, and if you have more than one, chances are they look pretty similar, right? Our daughters look very much the same, but they could not be different in terms of personality. And, I think, my wife, Jennifer, says that, our youngest is more of a carbon copy of me. For example, she was asking about jujitsu. And we had just learned, again, I'm a beginner. We had just learned triangle. And I said, well, I can show you how to choke somebody with your legs. And she's like, that is amazing. So, it's a great family life. We do a lot. We don't tend to sit still. We're either at swim meets or robotics competitions, or track meets. We're a very involved family when it comes to extracurricular activities. When we do have a down minute, we like to watch movies. Big Harry Potter fans, huge Harry Potter fans, and that's one waiver our youngest gets is that we didn't make her read the books first before watching the movies, and our oldest is still bitter about that we made her read the books, which honestly we enjoyed, before watching any of the films. Comedies too. We love Tommy Boy. I've probably watched that with my kids 100 times.
Classic.
Yeah.
So as a man that's successful, you're a successful general contractor, you got a million things going on. Why all the involvement? How do you find time and energy? Because like you're involved in your daughter's track and field. You get involved at swim. You've been involved in so many things, and now you're going to be running for school board.
Yes.
What makes you, as a man that could easily be like, I have plenty of money, I have a good family. Why are you deciding to always go that extra step and be involved in things?
It's because I have all those things. I feel responsible.
It's that gratitude again.
Yes. I want everybody to have the opportunity to experience the blessed life that I've had. In any way that I can contribute back to make that possible, I try to seize.
I really like that. I like that answer a lot. You keep going back to that. You keep saying, man, I'm grateful, and grateful people should give their best to others. And I think that's a message that we need to push across the culture more. Be thankful for what you have. A lot of times you have a lot more than what you realize if you just look around your life and be like, man, I'm more blessed than what I believe.
Well, yeah, and we've got some fairly recent history pointing to that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Or if you travel. Like we were talking about
absolutely.
before this podcast, go see other parts of the world and see the way that many human beings are forced to live and the regimes that overrule them. You know what I mean? And we are incredibly blessed to be in this nation. And now we're always seeking a more perfect union. That's the beauty of it. But we are incredibly blessed. So I want to talk a little bit about you decide to run for school board. First of all, that's a big decision. So paint for me the lead up to that.
Certainly.
What you were experiencing or feeling or were frustrated with, or like what was going on that first you wanted to get involved, and then secondly you decided, you know what, I'm going to not only get involved, I am going to put myself as a man that can, lead this in the proper direction.
Yeah. So we've always been involved in extracurricular activities, and where it kind of hit home for me was when the schools and everything were kind of shut down as part of the pandemic. I started paying attention. I saw what life was like for my children being removed from the activities they enjoyed. They built their whole social life around their teammates, and now that's reduced to, Snapchat and Zoom and social media. And it was heartbreaking, and it is difficult as it was for me to see that. I know others had it so much worse. And so that got me thinking, what is the path back, right? When everything was kind of shut down, I'm thinking, all right, 2 weeks and we're back in this. We've seen flu outbreaks before, and obviously this has far transcended that in terms of severity, but we'll be back to normal in a month, right? No. We'll be back to normal in time for, the kids to hit the pool part of the preseason, and then no, we weren't. So that got my attention. When in kind of keying into our school system, when are we going to get our kids back in the classroom so that I'm not having to crack open pre-calc textbooks to help with homework? I say that tongue in cheek because I've taken a lot of math. I'm not very good at it, and I'm certainly not good at remembering things, from my high school days in math. But really, it evolved from there, right? Watching that process unfold of, our school district. We live in Howell, and I give the staff a tremendous amount of credit for having the courage to do what they did. Which, if folks don't know, Howell was one of the first schools to resume full-time, 5 days a week, in-person instruction. There was a virtual option. And how they arrived there, I have great admiration for. They polled the community multiple times, saying, "Hey, with things developing, what do you want to see the school district do?" And they did it multiple times, and the answer built from a majority to a very large majority. So the district said, "Okay, we're going to do this." Now, there was a lot of opposition, and that opposition was quite loud. And kind of watching that dynamic between what our school district did in the face of some of that criticism got my attention, and I kind of stayed for that after things did resume. And I thought, you know what, maybe there is a role here for somebody like myself. Not me, because at the time that was the furthest thing from my mind. I'm working a ton, just happy to get my kids back in school and athletics. But through attending these meetings, I started to identify some things that I think I could bring to the table. And I'll call them my ABCs. It's really, my school board campaign platform. And it doesn't just reference the basics of education. So A is for accountability in everything that's done. I've spoken with a number of folks that have indicated that the board that's there doesn't necessarily always take the time to respond. That's a job.
I've heard that multiple times. I can verify that.
Yeah, that is the job. And to be non-responsive, that doesn't sit well with me. So if they're not responding to the people that put them in that position, right, what else isn't getting done? So in terms of accountability, I would work tirelessly to be accountable to the students of the district, making sure that they've got the best possible educational opportunities, accountable to the parents and respecting parents' rights. There's a lot of, I'll call it, a lot of noise out there about, things that are being taught in the classroom, things that shouldn't be taught, what should be taught. And, I think as a candidate, there are conversations that are best kept at home. Growing up, I'll say this, I had no idea if my teacher was Republican, Democrat. I didn't even think my teachers had a life after 3:00.
They just went into the closet in the room and slept until you came back the next day.
That's where they lived. And I think that's taken a turn. I think there's some room for improvement in that accountability and respecting the those conversations that should be reserved for the home. And then lastly, in accountability, we got to be accountable to the district taxpayers. We work hard. Everybody, I think, in our community works tremendously hard. And, the money that they contribute to the public good in the form of taxes, it deserves a responsible custodian. In talking with people as I go out and knock on doors and meet, the voters of our community, I always ask a question, and it's how much do you think the budget of a public school system is? And we'll just use Howell as an example. If I ask you that question, James, what would your answer be?
I honestly don't know. I have no idea what an average budget would be.
It's north of $80 million a year.
Wow. I would have thought maybe 25 to 30 million. I had no idea it was that high.
Yeah, it's a tremendous amount of money.
I mean, we have a tremendous responsibility to the children, so it's great to hear that the funding is that large, but it has to be very appropriately used, right? There has to be a lot of accountability for exactly how we are spending the taxpayers' dollars.
And it's not just accountability, it's maximizing the value of that, right?
Of course. You're a businessman. You understand that.
And seeking to stretch, right? and looking for areas to improve that. I think, one of the challenges nationally is attracting, bright young teachers to the profession. And I think one of the keys to that is having, great facilities. We're pretty good in Howell. There's a couple things that could be upgraded, and I know we're in the process of, becoming upgraded. My professional experience and expertise, I absolutely cannot wait to bring that to bear should I become elected. I really look forward to that process.
Like I said, you're a problem solver. You're someone that has looked at situations before, and then with a team of people, you've pulled the necessary information out of it and come up with solutions based on what you're witnessing. That's the type of brain we need to be in that position to say, okay, what is the right solution here? How do we maximize value? How do we get the most yield from what we can do here? That is the type of mind you need in a position like that.
Absolutely. It's bringing some of that business background in. You get back to some of the leadership topics we were talking about earlier. There's always room for discussion. There always should be discussion when you're talking about, massive spending programs and, $80 million public school budgets. That should come with a healthy amount of discussion.
100%. I think there's multiple parts of what you've just said that I kind of want to break down. First of all, in 2020, it was like a massive reset. But I'm actually starting to think it was one of the best things that's happened to our culture in a little while, because a lot of people had kind of fallen asleep behind the wheel and life was really good and things were going great. So everybody was kind of just going along, that we were all approaching paradise and a sunset. And 2020 snapped a lot of people awake, and it got a lot of great people that want to get involved. So this could end up being a great thing for the country, because now all of a sudden it's like, okay, how can I give more to my community? How can I take part in more activities? The second part that you mentioned was there are a lot of very loud extremists in culture now, where people will think by screaming or bullying or being outrageous that can help get their way. The reason I'm bringing this up is you need very strong leaders. Anyone that is willing to go to an elected position now in society is going to have to be someone with a spine that is willing to stand against any form of opposition and have the dialogue regardless. Even if you think somebody is completely detached, you have to be able to be the type of leader that embodies the strength enough that, like, I will speak to anyone. Now, at the end of our conversation, we may not draw the same conclusions. We may not be on the same page. I might not always do what you want me to do, but I will hear you. Yeah. I will give you a voice, and I will try to, be the man that I said I was going to be when I campaigned for this position. I'm not going to lose my spine when I get there.
Absolutely not. You have to have the courage of conviction when you enter these discussions, but be open-minded. And I think that's a hallmark of any productive discussion, is that both folks walk away from it having realized that they've grown a little bit, right? And that sets the stage for the subsequent conversation, right? And ultimately, through that discourse, you get to a place where you get the best answer.
100%. So that's the biggest thing, that when you had told me you were going to run for an office, that I felt like I was proud to be like, okay, that's a candidate I would back, because he's a man that is going to stand on trying to do the right thing at all costs. He's a man of principle. He's a man that is like, I will listen to any side of an argument or a suggestion, but my job is to try to find the right answer for my community, for the people. That is what we're trying to support moving forward.
Absolutely. And, I think a lot of that extremism comes from a place of goodness, right? It comes from a place of emotion. And, it's our jobs to sometimes step back and start looking at facts and data and assembling them into the answer that makes the most sense, right? And kind of cut through some of that emotion. And man, it's tough.
Well, and you should ask yourself, am I trying to be right? Am I trying to get my stance validated, or am I trying to find the right answer? Because the quest should always be to find the truth or the right thing to do. It shouldn't be to confirm your predetermined thought pattern. You know what I mean? We should be seeking, how do we come up with the right answer? If you have already placed your feet firmly in the concrete, you're not listening to the people that are speaking to you. You're trying to confirm it.
100%. Principles are good and they're a guiding force, but never be married to something via your ego.
Because in light of new information, why would you not adjust that opinion?
Absolutely.
That is the type of leadership we need, right? We need to be able to course correct when it's necessary, with morals and values and positive things being the driving force that moves the person into the conversation.
100%. That's, again, going back to that leadership discussion, I have a healthy respect for the things that I don't know, right? And I want to engage with people that do. That's part of that growth. I've, in my day job, a typical meeting looks like reviewing, official opinions from 2 or 3 groups of engineers and kind of cutting through the noise and egos, and we've always done it this ways to get the best answer for my customer. And you got to do that in life.
That's a perfect segue into what you're campaigning to do. You're a problem solver in the middle of different groups or different opinions, trying to find the correct answer. So one of the things you alluded to earlier, I think is massively important, is that you said to me, I didn't even know if my teacher was a Republican or a Democrat. We've gotten so obsessed with labels that people are instantly qualifying you as, oh, Jason is a this, well, that must mean these chain of things. No, Jason is an individual that has all of these different characteristics to him, and then somewhere down the line you will find the label of how he votes or et cetera.
And I think that's a function of social media. I really do, because it's become very easy to reduce somebody to a letter next to their name or a Facebook post or a tweet, or I'm not much on Twitter, but you kind of get where I'm coming from. We're missing that engagement piece. And, I've had some powerful discussions with people who disagree with me on Facebook, and it's like, I bet if we were to sit down and have a cup of coffee or a bourbon
speak
or beer,
as 2 individuals,
you would come to understand no 2 people are ever going to align 100% on everything, but we will have common ground, and we can build on that.
100%. And that is an idea that we need to support also in elected officials, that, hey, we are supporting the individual. Listen, at the end of the day, if I lean conservative in most of my views and I wanted to support a Republican candidate, but I found a Democratic candidate that was just a much better man of integrity, I genuinely believed was going to lead with conviction and do the right thing, versus, let's say, the Republican in that case was not the right candidate, just they have a terrible track record, I'm going to support the Democratic candidate. I'm not going to just look at the group identity. So I want to challenge more people to do that.
Yeah.
Don't look at the group first. Look at the man or woman that is running and say, are they a family person? Do they have a track record of success? Do they live with gratitude and, a community engagement in their mindset? Why are they pursuing this position? And when you find that they check every box, does it really matter the final label that, the R or the D? We are supporting the human being. And that's something that I really want the listeners to kind of engage with.
And our politicians have a responsibility there too, to not act the letter in every single instance. Stand up, do what's right for the people that put you in office. And I think we're seeing some bright spots, and we're seeing some courage out there.
I think 2020 is actually, a reason for that. Like I said, a lot of people now are paying more attention than ever, and they're getting involved. And it might end up being the best thing that's happened to us in a while, once we can reflect from a further out stance.
Oh, yeah. 2020 highlighted some weaknesses, right? And I think we can identify those easily, but I think it also identified some strengths, right? People started understanding what's important. And, this cliche's been out there, but, coming from construction, I'm going to shamelessly use it anyway. Who was essential during the shutdown? Was it an NBA player? No. Life got by just fine without those folks. Plumbers? Yes. you've got a plumbing issue, you don't want to have to wait because there's a pandemic. Electricians, essential. Police, fire, EMTs, essential. So I think one of the positives that came out of this pandemic is that we've started to identify the good things, right? And it has been a shift and a refocus of priorities, and I still see them to this day. For a long time, you saw the little, hometown hero bumper sticker, essential worker lives here. That's great. Celebrating the frontline workers and nurses, the mechanics, the people that make the American machine move every day. Celebrating them is great.
Well, and the American spirit is an incredibly powerful thing. Like when the American spirit rises up in people, we can move mountains. We can change the course of history. America really does have some dreamers and people that want to change the world for the better. So now if you have all these people getting involved and going out in their communities and taking charge and willing to be leaders, and they're going to stand up to opposition, you know what? Like I said, this could be a pivotal moment in our history.
And what I see too, and I talk with a number of political candidates and especially school board candidates in our county. They're parents, right? And while there's parents on the board now, I mean, I don't know that was necessarily their reason for running. Now, universally, it's parents, and people are taking a very active role in their kids' lives. That's a tremendous thing.
So you mentioned the ABCs, and you went over accountability extremely well, but we still got B and C, which is balance and curriculum. So tell me about those, because I loved that campaign.
So B for balance is just in any world. I mean, you've already alluded to it. There's extremes on both sides. Usually the best answer lies somewhere between the two. And, I'll give a couple examples of the balance that I would try to bring in. We've experienced this in our personal lives with our oldest daughter. Our school district did a tremendous job of preparing her for college. Great job. Things to, in terms of the classes you need to take, the academic standards that need to be met, the steps that need to be taken for you to be college ready. They did well. And granted, there's always room for improvement, but in our experience, it's been great. Where we fail, I think, as a district is preparing those kids that aren't college bound for life.
Like skilled trades workers, right?
100%. That's my world. I live it every day. There's been a shortage of skilled trades for 2 decades, and we don't seem to do anything substantial about it. It's really reaching a critical point in our industry. We're not going to be able to do some of the things we need to do as a society to keep moving if we don't have masons and electricians and ironworkers and carpenters. It's been my experience in the trades is that a lot of these guys and gals, they go to college for a couple of years, find out it's not for them, and then they find themselves in the trades, and then they have a wonderful, rewarding, financially secure career. And they kind of took a windy, twisty path to get there, but by the time they did, they've got thousands of dollars sometimes in college debt. And I think we can do better, right? We can connect those dots sooner, right?
Yeah, you can tell those young kids, this is a respectable career. Being a skilled trades member it could provide a beautiful life, and you can be an essential service that people are going to need, and you can get on that journey that you talked about in the beginning of this podcast of mastering a craft and really honing your skill set, and then being able to pass that information along.
And I've given this advice out to many people, including my nephew. Learn a trade. The worst that comes of that is that you become a more interesting person at parties. I mean, that literally.
That was awesome.
Knowing how to do things is good, right? A lot of times
you see the memes on Facebook that the older generation could fix anything, and now we can we struggle to make food that's not microwavable.
Yeah, that was the repair manual for a pickup truck in the 1960s taught you how to replace the valves. Now we have warning labels on laundry detergent not to eat it. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
100%. Check engine lights flashing in your car, and the person's like, what does this mean? Do I just keep driving? It'll go away, right?
It's like a video game achievement. You get all the dashboard
exactly.
lit up.
It's
you
a
win.
victory.
Yeah.
So over time, there definitely has been a cultural shift and a different, view on people that choose those pathways. But I think it's starting to correct. I think it's starting, because when I was growing up, college was the thing that was pushed more than anything else. It was like, if you don't go to college, you're probably a loser. That is how it was pressed, at least to my age group.
Personally, and my mother is the sweetest woman in the world, but one thing she was not so sweet about was you and your sister are going to go to college. And she was very blunt about that, and that was just the time we lived in, right? That was the college degree was held up as the crowning achievement, right? That's how you got set up for life.
Oh yeah, culture and institutions were telling you if you want to be successful, you are going to go to college and earn a degree. I mean, I did not go to college, and I remember through a lot of my early childhood, after I decided not to go to college, I had to work through that this doesn't mean you're a loser. This doesn't mean you're less intelligent. This doesn't mean any of those things. It was just not the pathway for you.
So I've got some other personal experience that I'll talk about now. We got on a path. We're having a great discussion about my higher ed, right? And I got an undergrad degree in construction management, and then almost immediately I went and went to night and weekend school for my MBA at Western Michigan. And looking back, I learned some great things about business, about finance, about marketing. We spent zero time on entrepreneurship. Small businesses are the backbone of our country. And I went through a graduate degree without ever being taught anything about it. And it's not like I'm shirking the responsibility, right, of you don't have to necessarily be taught everything. You should seek some things on your own. There was never any signal from a professor saying, "Hey, maybe you want to check into entrepreneurship. Maybe you want to look at, how to create your own business instead of what we're focused on is creating the perfect corporate employee." Right? And that gets back to the balance that I want to bring to our public education system is I want to show kids from an early age small business ownership is an absolute opportunity and it's very possible. And give them some of those basic skills.
Yeah, I was actually hearing the exact same thing from my cousin who just graduated from the Fox School of Business and Temple University in Pennsylvania. So, and he's incredibly intelligent. He went into risk management, and we were having conversations about entrepreneurship. And, he was saying to me man, I don't get taught any of those things. I don't know the first thing about investing. I don't really know how to start a business. And I'm like, you just graduated from the Fox School of Business. You should be worlds beyond in what I know. Yeah. And he told me the exact same story. He said, no. I wasn't taught any of these things. I'm learning them through real world experience. Yep. But it wasn't part of the curriculum. We weren't being challenged to think critically on how to launch a business and, how to really be an entrepreneur, because you're absolutely right. The opportunities out there for people that are dreamers and go-getters are endless. But sometimes it takes that one person believing in you or telling you, you can absolutely do this. Well, we should start that with children. We should start teaching children that you don't have to go to college. It is an avenue. You don't have to become an electrician, but it's an avenue. You don't have to become a small business owner, but it's an avenue, because that will allow kids to feel better about their decisions, to be like, you know what? I want to go for this. Yeah. I want to go master a trade.
It truly is cultural. And as you said earlier, I'm starting to see that shift a little bit, right? There's an appreciation for skilled trades on social media.
It's great to hear.
And where it hit for me was attending the senior night last year for the high school football team. More than ever, I hear a couple kids. One wants to be a welder, one wants to be an electrician, and there were a few that were looking at the military. There are different paths, so it is changing, and I think that's a function of the appreciation we're starting to show for the trades as a culture.
So now we have your curriculum, the C. Explain it to me. What are the things that you think you would have your eyes on, or is it more just a general viewpoint on your leadership?
It is. I mean, the curriculum for me boils down to the basics, right? What are the things that are critical for success, right? And you talked about paths. You've got a college path, so we should make sure that we're focusing on STEM, science, technology, all those things that are enriching and preparatory for a college degree. There's other paths too. We've talked about skilled trades. We've talked about the need for that, but how is that need being met? And I can tell you in Howell, and I don't know what the situation is with other school districts locally, but there's a waiting list to get on the welding program. And this is some old data. This is from last April, but that waiting list was over 40 kids.
Wow. So there is a large interest. These kids want to get involved.
Kids want to weld. They want to learn how to weld. We've got a tremendous instructor. We've got good facilities. What we lack is capacity, right? And I look at it through this lens. Welding is essential, right? There's a need for welders. If we were looking at a shortage of algebra teachers and there was a waiting list of 40 kids to get into an algebra class, there would be chaos, right? People would be upset, and I think we need to not act that way, right, and react that way, but we need to have that same sense of urgency in offering those types of programs for our kids.
Sure, there's a jam there. There's people that want to go down a certain pathway that could yield an awesome future that is needed across culture. We have to solve those problems. You're able to look at that and say, hey, there's obviously an interest. How do we fit this? How do we make this work within our budget? How do we have resources that we can deploy to help these kids get what they're seeking? Because you know what? A student that is engaged is going to do a million times better than a kid that is just stuck in a class that he hates. He's not able to be in the welding program that his friend's in. We need to engage kids. Kids not being engaged in school is a national problem.
It is. And there's a couple of ways in my opinion that we can recreate, or we can kind of enhance that engagement. The first being stepping back from Common Core. I think a lot of people have talked about Common Core, and I'm not an educational specialist, but what I do understand from it is we have standards that every child needs to hit. Well, when we do that, I think sometimes we take our eye off helping each child and each student develop to their fullest potential, right?
There's no question of that. I think a lot of the times, okay, I'm going to just speak broadly here, but if you take a system and then you dumb it down a bunch, you're taking all the people that could have excelled tremendously to be the mathematicians or the people that are high-end engineers, and you are pulling them down as well, right? So you need to be careful about changing things in a structure that takes away from others trying to meet the needs of one kids. You need to offer opportunity for all levels.
Absolutely. And, it doesn't just go for test scores, right? It's not that everybody needs to hit this minimum or that minimum. It's in terms of the curriculum that's offered. I mean, when we start, I'm a firm believer in what gets measured gets done. And when we are looking at hitting specific goals and specific subjects, we're missing an opportunity to broaden that.
100%. You're too dialed in on one area that you're missing a larger picture. I would agree with that 100%. So let's talk about, is this your first time ever running for an elected office?
It certainly is.
And what have you learned during the process? What has the community engagement been like? What do you think, if you had to summarize yourself in a short message to people, what would you want to say? Just tell me about the experience of actually deciding, first of all, when did you finally say, I'm going to do this? What was your wife's reaction? And then tell me about this experience of running for your first ever elected office.
So I made the decision about a year ago. And again, I've said I have a healthy respect for the things I don't know. I wanted to become as expert as I could in a very short amount of time about how to equip myself for success in that world. I hustle sun up to sundown, right? It's who I am, and I'm not going to throw myself into something half-heartedly. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I had some lengthy discussions with my family, and my wife has been 110% supportive. We make a great team, quite honestly. She, I tend to think of things in terms of data and big picture and, solving a problem. And, she's there as a, nice guardrail to keep me focused. And she's been a tremendous help and a huge support.
I have that same exact dynamic with my fiance, and it's like, because I'm the biggest dreamer. I want to take on the world. I want to do all these massive things, and she brings a balance to my life and a way of thinking that I've always been super intelligent my whole life. I've always scored really high on tests. So I almost got too big of an ego when I was younger, and I thought I already knew answers. I thought I could already solve everything. She brings in an element where I look through her lens, and I'm like, how in the world do you see the world like this? And I've grown tremendously as a human being by being with her, and it has empowered me. And before I even met your wife, Jennifer, I would have known there was a good woman by your side because you're very empowered. And I think that dynamic comes from that relationship growing you even into more than what you could have become by yourself.
Again, be with people that make you the best person you can be, right? And a great example of her help is I post on social media as part of my campaign on a regular basis, and again, I'm very engineering, numbers focused, and it looks like an outline, and it makes perfect sense to me, and it's an economic use of words. And by the time it gets through her editing, it's like, that sounds way better.
100%. And I have suffered from that most of my life, where I go, if I present a logical argument that's step by step A to B to C, there's no way you can draw any other conclusions. And then my fiance would be like, what about that? I'm like, what? But that, like I said, it rounds you, but it makes you way more effective at connecting with people, because most people are not engineer brains. They're not. They are driven by their emotional system, the limbic system, as we refer to it. People, the famous quote that people don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel. Yeah. That is so true. People are going to remember about what they felt like in your presence, about what feelings they drew from your words, not your literal words. And that's something that was very hard for me to grasp, and I'm sure it was hard for you to grasp as well. But when you can take that engineered data problem-solving mindset, and then you can tie it into how to connect the right way, then you truly have an unstoppable force.
That's it. And that's another lens that I try to look through. I'm like, if I'm Jen reading something, how's this going to sound? So, you take those relationships and you absorb the good.
Right? 100%. So what else have you learned during this campaign? How is it going? When is the actual vote coming down? Like, just give me all the final details.
Okay. What I've learned is people are paying attention to public schools. I've knocked on close to 1,000 doors, and it's rare that somebody doesn't want to talk. People are concerned. They see the school as a fundamental driving force for the America of tomorrow, and they are now fully tuned to what's happening, and they want to know. They're waiting for somebody like me to come and talk to them. And I can tell you that, it's been incredibly encouraging to meet with folks and have productive discussions about, their viewpoints of our public school system, and then, my vision for its future.
All right, so I'm sold, right? Like, I've known you for a while. I've known you as a student. I know the group of people you associate with. I know them to be great human beings. How do I get a sign for out front of the Michigan Institute of Athletics? It's Jason Bedford as we move up to this. How do I do that?
You just got to ask. So, I'll make sure you get one.
So what do you think this last little period looks like? What are the things that we could ask of the community? Because a lot of people follow what we do here. A lot of people follow our athletes. People have seen my work in the community for well over a decade. if people listen to this podcast and they're like, I want to do whatever I can do to help Jason because I believe him to be a good man to achieve this position, what would you tell those people? What's the best thing that they can do?
Reach out, not to just myself, but every candidate. Reach out and engage with them. The emails and phone numbers for every candidate is posted on the county website. Do your research and then call. That engagement is crucial, right, to support me or really any other candidate. I know I appreciate it, right? I get it. It's nice to get emails or likes on social media, but what I truly value are those conversations. I had a nice one last evening on my way from the home opener swim and dive meet for the Howell girls team to the Cohocton Township board, or Cohocton Township meeting. And, we have a huge school district, by the way. There's 17,000 households, and, it takes a fair bit of time to drive from one side to the other. And in that half hour, I had a very, very productive discussion with a woman who reached out to me, concerned about some of the things that were happening in the school system that weren't being responded to. So that engagement is number one. Number two, if you want to support me, I have a website. There's plenty of content on there where you can get a very good understanding of my stance on the issues and my vision. I'm active on social media. I've got a Facebook account and then an Instagram account. And then, if you've done your research, you like what I have to say, get the word out. Tell your friends, tell your family, have those discussions with them, and that creates a tremendous amount of support. That I'm just every time I see, one of my signs go up in a yard that I didn't put up, I am honored and humbled that someone believed in me enough, in my message and my vision, to share that with someone else.
100%. That makes sense. And what I would ask people to do is if you watch a clip of this podcast and you want to help Jason and you're not fully sure the best way to do it, share his message. The more people connect to him, the more genuine support is going to be generated. And I want you guys to realize, while he sits across from me, he's saying, do your research. Look at all the candidates. Reach out to them. That is not the normal elected official politician stance. Normally, it's I'm going to say a terrible thing about my opponent or trash them to try to make myself better. But that engineer brain is like, hey, if I'm not the right solution, I want you to find the right solution. That already speaks to your character and your integrity, because you're not saying, I'm the only choice. You're saying, I want you to make the right choice. And if you believe it to be me, please reach out to me and do what you can to get us into this position.
Now, on the backside of that, James, I'm going to work hard to make sure that I am the right choice.
Oh, 100%. And I know that. And I know that you believe that you are. That's why you're willing to say to people like, hey, do your research and look at the other candidates, because you have that strong confidence in yourself. There's not that insecurity about like, well, if I don't, if I point them in any other direction, it's not going to work out in my favor. I don't feel that at all from you. So you gave some vagueness there about how to reach out to you. Plug your social media. Tell me the website. How do we contact you? What's your email?
All right. So my email is jason@jasonsbedford.com. I had to add the S. That's my middle initial because somebody had already taken the.
There's probably a lot of Jason Bedfords.
Yeah, and one is too many. Jason@jasonsbedford.com. My website is www.jasonsbedford.com, and then my Facebook is Jason S. Bedford, and then my Instagram is elect Jason Bedford 2022. I had to add some more characters in there, but that's how you can find me. And please engage. I truly appreciate it when somebody thinks deeply enough about what I've posted or said to want to start a discussion.
I love it. I'm on board. We can get a sign out front of here. I wish
you.
you the best in this campaign. If there's anything else you'd like to say on this podcast, any message you'd like to give to the community, anything you want to say about you as a leader, as your vision, anything at all, go ahead and say it at this point. And then if not, we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah, thank you so much, James, for having me as a guest. I've watched some pretty incredible people on your podcast, and I'm honored and humbled to be one of them. With that said, I truly value and love the community I live in. We've lived here since 2006, and these are the only schools my children have attended. We've formed just some incredibly deep and meaningful friendships. And James, I want with all my heart the best possible future for the students in this community.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, Jason. And, we'll wrap this podcast up.
Thank you.